prevention is better than cure. Yeah. So I think the agencies, the multi-agencies, and I've seen that they worked much better. I was on site at Westgate a few years ago, and it was very uncoordinated. That's why it took too long. But this time, 12 or so hours, and the cops had gotten everything contained, because now they're working together in a very coordinated fashion. Sure. I think what they now need to start doing is to start sharing data, you know, between all the agencies, between the immigration, because these guys come from Somalia. These guys get stopped on roadblocks when they are driving from Garissa or Mandera back to Nairobi. They register phones with our phone networks. I know the CID have a desk at Safaricom and all these other networks. I think they need now to share that data so that if anything peculiar comes out, then they're able to flag it. And that way now you're able to catch these things before they happen.
Right, and of course, most of the time when such investigations are going on, you realize that mostly people focus on the investigation themselves. But remember, there are 21 people whose lives have been lost, and there are so many other injured persons that are still recovering from the injuries, the physical injuries, as well as the psychological trauma. Do you think we have done enough to support these families and victims? And what else can we do as a country without ignoring the fact that we need to stop the recurrence of such incidents?
Okay, I'm hoping that somewhere in the back rooms that there is someone, some agencies making sure that they support the families, because there have been people who, you know, who have suffered a lot more. But like I said, the media always picks what is,
what sells?
I don't know what sells. Yes, and then so now it's the pictures of the suspects. They don't put the picture. We don't know who died, what happened to them, how their family is doing. You don't write that part of the story, and it is something that has become very prevalent in Kenya. But also, just like Jonathan says, is that the question we should ask ourselves is that why aren't we carrying out investigations before the attack happens? Think about it. Every time a police officer flags you down, what is it? They'll say your car doesn't have a, they'll be looking at you don't have a license, your car is making too much noise. They stop a lot of trucks, I hear about that. They say that excessive smoke. They are so busy. If you go today to Westlands, the entire police force around Westlands is busy arresting young children who are coming out of clubs. They are not bothered about criminals. So in fact, you start asking yourself, where is the focus of the security agencies in this country? We have the military, and they have military intelligence. What are they doing? And they are, remember, we've not had war in Kenya in a long, long time. So they are a available resource to continue doing this. What are they doing? So we have a lot, in fact, we don't need more security forces. We just need to get them to start doing their work and stop focusing on the wrong things. Every time a police officer stops you, it's because they probably want 500 shillings or they want 1,000 shillings from you. It is not because they're trying to find out who is this person, they look strange, etc. They don't do that. So I would appeal to the security forces to retrain and realign them to start focusing on dangers like this to the country.
You know,
that's an important point. Even as you respond, I'm just wondering how, because I mean, you can only do what you know. So how do we reorganize how the police behave? Or
their software in their heads.
Yeah, I think I agree. I agree with my sister Gladys Cholet. You know, in October I was driving from Malindi to Mombasa, and at the junction of Watamu, I met some 2 administration police. And they flagged the car down, and they asked me to give them a lift to the roadblock that is like maybe 2 or 3 kilometers from Watamu as you're headed to Mombasa. And I told them, sure. So they got into the back. I was with one of my friends at the front. So I got them into the back of the car, and we drove. And as we got to the roadblock, they said, just drop us a little past the roadblock where our post is. So we were stopped at the roadblock, and the armed police officer who stopped me came, looked at insurance, asked me, how are you doing? Unaenda wapi? I'm going to Mombasa. And they let me go. But I had 2 policemen at the back with big guns until here, and nobody noticed. So I thought, why am I being stopped if they're not checking who am I, where am I going, what am I carrying? I had 2 people with guns at the back. and the policeman who stopped me didn't notice.
You could even have shot them.
So what you're saying is very true. I'm sure the policemen have a standard operating procedure. I'm sure they have a process that when you stop somebody at a roadblock, you're supposed to look for A, B, C, D, E. Why they don't, I don't know. And that's what probably needs to be enforced.
Maybe the technology. Do they have even the skill? Some of them, surely, on the road. I think that is where we need to ask ourselves. Like when you enter a mall, you find, okay, they will check. But nobody recognizes you're armed.
Yep.
Yeah, even us, when you're getting into a mall. So you wonder, what have you just checked? Because you have not asked me quietly if you have, and we have very many private citizens who are licensed to have arms.
And if you look, I think some of the purchases, even in most of the buildings, and I can say this for a fact, I remember when I worked at the judiciary, we had some people who came in, security people who came in to do a security analysis. One of the things they did, all of them had firearms, and they walked right through that metal detector machine. And I know a lot of people who carry firearms and walk through Westgate. They walk through every mall, I know. And so the question, I think, even the X-ray machine that we have, I don't think some of the security people that we hire know how to read the X-ray. Just the way I can't read my medical X-ray, that you have to have an expert read it, have these people been trained to read what that could be?
Could be, yes. I
have gotten on planes with things that they should have asked me, what could this be? But they don't. You know, so I think it's retraining our security forces to know what to ask for, to know what to look out for, to know what questions to ask, and even just have a checklist on what should be suspicious.
Okay.
And the corruption element. I mean, how many times do we see it out in the media that people pay to get across? Yeah. So we also need to look at that corruption element and get these bad apples amongst us out, because the police force, like you saw at Dusit, we have some very competent people, we have professional people in our forces that know what to do and are here to protect us. But there are some bad elements who collaborate, they form cartels, they let these guys through the borders, they let these guys through the roadblocks knowingly in exchange of money. Those also need to be found, and the police organization needs to do something about it, so that we can get those bad apples out. That way these guys don't come in.
But also, for me, it's critical for my PS Kivishu and his team on census that as much as we talk of borders, I know I've gone to Wajir. I don't see a border in Wajir. I see people, you know, and you find that on the other side of, for example, Wajir, that is where the water is. So you find many people leaving Kenya and they will leave the other side because that's where the water is, which is in Somalia. When you go to Mandera, where is the border? You ask yourself. So, you know, it's and then the other side of Mandera, you are in Ethiopia, this other side of the river. So it's a very interesting region, and we will see. If we are not careful, even in your own census, you'll be so shocked how you will count people who are not real Kenyans.
Who are not real Kenyans. And unfortunately now, in as much as Somalia is the training ground, the people that are being trained are not exactly from Somalia. You've had some of them who...
Well, young people have now been radicalized, and it is a question where you need to ask yourself, you know, when people are talking about young people being picked at Manyani, you know, people are just thinking it's a joke, but parents are in this country. They need to ask themselves. One of the challenges we are facing is where a parent does not ask a question from a child who is not working or who is not telling you which kibarua she or he is doing.
Carrying designer handbags and wearing designer shoes.
And he flashes you with money and you're so happy. You must be a very worried parent at that point. And that is where now we talk of our values, where you as a family, what do you value? Do you value materialistic that chokes you until you find yourself, your destiny is gone because of materialistic things?
All right, I want us to conclude on that topic,
Yes, but Speaker, is it, now that we are seeing the face of terror is changing, is it radicalization or is it economic hardship? Because
both.
you're finding people who are Kambas like myself, or Kikuyus or Kisis, all of a sudden they decide they don't have any interest in Islam. They don't know anything about Islam. They decide they're going to go to Somalia, become Muslims, change their names, and then all of a sudden somebody who's 25 years old comes and blows themselves up. I think it has something to do with
both, yes.
economic hardship.
Yes.
I think we're reaching a place where our youth have no jobs, they have nowhere to
but
turn.
at the same time,
They need to take care of their families, and they go and they're told, listen, you sacrifice yourself, we'll take care of your entire family, and these 3 years you're with us, we'll make sure you carry designer handbags, you have a good sofa set in your house, we pay for you rent in a nice place, and then go blow yourself up. So maybe we need to start thinking, how do we empower people economically?
That takes you back to your Sunday school class. And let me tell you, there are many Kenyans who are there. They know they've gone through hell because of poverty, but they will never think. Never think to do that. So it also goes with where you've come. And that's why we are really careful of the environment you grow in, that nurtures you, that brings you out, determines also how you move. Because that's why I said, is it the materialistic that you have now? Your heart has gone into that until you feel you're better off blowing people, or what?
So the question I want to ask you, three of you, as we wind up on this, in as much as poverty and unemployment has its place in all this, don't you think these are just criminals who are taking advantage of religion and the opportunity that you can make a kill? Aren't just basically criminals, and what do we do to ensure, because it's not every unemployed person who is in that.
They are very, in fact, they are most of them intelligent guys, people who have gone to campus. So it's not the issue of poverty. It's beyond. There are those who are just, naturally we have in the world, radicalized people who believe in just serial killers. You know, they are there. But then we have very innocent ones who are manipulated in the process, and then you find yourself into this life.
Right.
And those are the ones who are, they die so quick. They don't stay in it because it is not your life.
Sure.
And there are those who would wish to come out of it because they didn't know. You know, young people with peer pressure, you decide, I want to taste. How does it feel to be? And then the moment you're on that side, it's like drugs. The moment you're in drugs, you are trying, peer pressure took you in. Now coming out becomes also a challenge. And for these ones, I tell you, if you're coming out, we are killing you. Yeah.
All right.
So there are many challenges also within these young people, because you find when you're radicalized, you have a very different mind.
All right. Honorable Sholei talked about the media. We do not focus on the victims of terror. I believe that we have been highlighting some of them, of course not all of them. And of course tomorrow there'll be a memorial service for 6 brave men who worked for Cellulant, one of the farms that runs at the Dusit D to a terror attack. Just to mention their names: Ashford Kuria, who was the head of product development, Dennis Moneki, who was the head of information security, Jeremiah Mbaria, who was the head of hub, John Deritu, quality assurance tester, Kelvin Gitonga, who was the hub engineer, and Wilfred Kareithi, who was the implementation engineer, global delivery team. We send out our condolences to the family and Cellulant, and we pray for the repose of the souls of the
And I do hope that Cellulant did not pay for this advert. I hope that Nation Media Group did give it to them for free. That I would like to know, because then we will know that the media is actually supporting it.
Okay.
So it's not the company
paying.